Hi everybody, Coach Keith here for the second installment in the Definitive Guide to Squatting series. Today we're going to be looking at squat mobility. So whether your lower back's rounding on a squat or you just can't get into the bottom of the movement, we're going to break down some common mobility issues, some tests to see if you have them, and some fixes if that's the problem. Let's get started. All right, guys. So first we're going to talk about some squat mobility, starting with our stance. Our stance is going to be determined by our pelvis and our femurs. So the femur here is what the quadriceps sits on, and this would be our pelvis. Some people are going to have femurs that sit shallower into the socket or deeper into the socket. And some people are going to have shorter pelvic bones, as you see in this cross-section area. Some people would have wider pelvic bones, as seen in that cross-section area. These two components are going to determine our stance width, how close or how far apart we need to put our legs. So, in the case of this individual, their pelvic bone would not interfere with their femur. So they could take a very close stance without their femur running into their pelvic bone. In the case of this person, if they were to take a very narrow stance, as their femur travels up, it would run into the pelvic bone. When our femur runs into our pelvis, it's going to create a condition called butt wink. What that is shown here as the femur rotates up, and this is the pelvis. When the femur comes into contact with the pelvis, it can no longer travel any further unless it drags the pelvis with it. So when this happens, as you descend in a squat, if your stance width is too narrow for your genetic capabilities, what's going to happen is it's going to tuck your pelvis under your body, and that's going to round your spine under. A lot of people will argue that butt wink is fine because it naturally occurs in humans. Well, yes, our bodies can survive thousands of cycles of butt wink with just our body weight. It is an unnatural thing to have hundreds of pounds on a loaded bar on our back. And in this drawing, we can see why that would be a problem. If we imagine this was the bar sitting on top of a straight spine, our spine's in a very strong position to support that weight. However, in this picture, if we had a loaded bar sitting on top of a rounded spine, all the force is going to want to push a disc out. So we want to make sure that we have the proper squat stance for our genetics in our pelvis and our femurs. So we will look at a quick test to determine where your squat stance should be. Here's an example of butt wink. Since my feet are too close together as I descend, my lower back has to round under, as seen here, once my femur runs into my pelvis. All right, guys, so basic squat stance mobility. Now, a good place to start is going to be your feet just outside shoulder width and your toes, these were your feet, pointed slightly outward. Now, way to test for this, quick test, is going to be to lay on the ground with your lower back completely flat. That's very important. If you round your lower back like this, and I'm exaggerating, but if your lower back's rounded, I can get my whole hand under there, there's lots of space, it's not going to tell you anything. So you need to push your lower back into the ground. So now, I can't fit my hand under there, there's absolutely no space. Now, what I'm going to do is start by showing you the wrong way. So I already know what my mobility is. So I'm going to bring my legs up to 90 degrees. Now, my lower back is still nice and flat on the ground at this point. As I bring my legs up towards my chest, my knees up towards my chest, my femur is going to run into my pelvis. It's going to run into my pelvic bone, and it's going to pull my lower back into a rounded position. So as I come up, I can already feel it pulling it, and you can see my lower back is off the ground. Now I'm exaggerating this. This is an extremely rounded position, but you can see that I feel a pinch right here when my femur runs into my pelvis bone, just at parallel, and then the only way that I can continue going, bringing my knees toward my chest, is to round my back like that. Now, I'll go into my actual squat stance, which is going to be, my knees are going to be just outside my shoulder width. Now, I can do the same thing with my lower back flat on the ground, and I can go through the full range of motion with my low back flat on the ground, and now I am in the fully contracted position. My hamstrings are touching my calves. My quads are running into my stomach. There is no more space here, but my lower back is still flat on the ground. This is still a very comfortable and strong position. So, let me just flip around and we'll do a different angle so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. So, if I start with my legs very close together, my legs are together, and I start bringing my knees towards my chest, I can already feel my lower back coming up. My lower back comes up. So, bad position for me. So I widen my legs into my normal squat stance. Now, I can bring my legs out. I can bring my knees all the way till my calves run into my hamstrings. My quads are running into my stomach. There is no more space here, but my lower back is still nice and flat on the ground. So, guys, that's a quick test just to get an idea of where to set up for your squat. Now, you can play around with different stances, but just make sure that if you're feeling your lower back round, that you change your stance, because we never want to have our lower back round under load. Guys, the next area of mobility that we need to get into for the squat is going to be hip external rotation and ankle mobility. These are going to be the two things that are primarily responsible for athletes feeling knee pain. Now, if you have a pre-existing knee injury, I recommend that you see a doctor. However, if you are a healthy athlete and you keep experiencing tendonitis or other overuse injuries related to exercise, it's most likely caused by a mobility issue above or below the knee. That's going to be in the hips or in the ankles. So we'll look at a quick ankle mobility test to determine if you have an ankle mobility issue, and then a quick fix to mobilize that ankle so you can start squatting properly. So guys, quick ankle mobility here, okay? In a squat, we need the bar to stay centered over the middle of our foot. So we need to have both hip external rotation and knee flexion. That's going to be ankle mobility. So we need to make sure that our knee can come far enough past our toe in order for us to squat properly. So I'm going to use this pole here, but you can use a wall or any other surface. So what we want to do is take our hand flat like an L. We're going to put it up against the wall with our thumb out, and we're going to put our big toe right up to our thumb, okay? And that's the distance that we want. Now, we should be able to bring our knee to the wall without our heel leaving the ground. So, as you can see, I can bring my knee all the way to the wall without my heel leaving the ground. Now, if I was trying to bring my knee to the wall and my heel popped up like that, one of two things is occurring. If you feel a tightness in your calf restricting you from going forward, then you most likely need to stretch your calves. Your calves are probably super tight. If you feel a pinch or blocking sensation in the foot here that appears to prevent you from going forward, it's most likely a frozen talus bone. So, there's a quick mobilization for that. So let me reposition the tripod and we'll get to mobilizing that bone. All right, so if you felt a pinch or block sensation right here, this is how we're gonna fix it. So all I did was took a 1/2-inch band and looped it around a pole. You can loop it around anything. So we're gonna step the foot that we need to mobilize into the band. Now, what we're gonna do is if you run your finger down your foot, you're gonna feel bone, and then right here, you're gonna feel a pocket. So as I run my finger down, it's bone, 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 and then there's a little pocket right here. And then underneath it is bone again. Now this is where the talus bone sits. We won't get into the anatomy of it, but it gets frozen a lot of times if people sit in office jobs and things like that. We're just not flexing our ankle properly. So this is a quick mobilization for it. So we're gonna walk the band down. So I feel that little indentation right here. I'm gonna put the band right in it, okay? Then I'm gonna step my foot forward. So there's tension on the band. And all I'm gonna do is push my knee forward with my foot flat on the floor like this. I'm gonna bring my knee forward as far as I can, sit there for a second, come back, bring my knee forward as far as I can, come back, bring my knee forward, sit there for a second, come back. All you're gonna do is just do this about 20 times per foot until your ankle starts to loosen up. Then retest your mobility and see if your knee can then touch the wall, as I showed in the prior part of this video. All right, guys, the last area of squat mobility that we need to look at is gonna be hip mobility. Now, I like to start every one of my squat workouts with the warm-up that I'm about to show you. It gets your glutes firing and your hips warmed up and externally rotated. Check this out and use it before your next squat workout. Here's a quick warm-up for the hips and glutes to get you ready for squatting. I start with straight leg banded kickbacks. You can also use a cable machine for these. I'll do 20 reps with each leg. Then I will go into 20 banded kick outs. So I'm kicking out at a 45-degree angle to the side, getting the external part of the glute, as you could see me pointing to there. So I'm coming back and out at a 45-degree angle. The final part of this warm-up is the side plank clamshell. Loop a resistance band around your knees. Then with your legs bent at the knees, bridge up into a side plank. I externally rotate my top leg, bringing my knee towards the ceiling and fighting against the resistance band. This forces the lower glute to stabilize the hips while the top glute is externally rotating. Do 20 reps and then a 10-second hold on each leg. Here we'll see the exercise performed from the back. So as you can see, I bridge up and externally rotate my glute as I'm pointing to there. Again, do 20 reps and then a 10-second hold. Guys, after this, your hips will be warmed up and you'll be ready for your next squat workout. Guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video. Leave your questions in the comments section below. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a like and a share. Check out AmericanIronTraining.com for workout programs and apparel. I appreciate everybody's support. Thanks for watching.